Star Trek Discovery is back, and by this point, the show is more side quests than Dude, Where's My Car? There's a new First Officer, a new lack of Saru, and another clue to a thing to find something, or whatever, maybe, who knows. And this week's episode is a classic Trek time travel problem solving premise, and this is a bit like the end game story with Tony and Steve stealing the time stone, sort of. We see a lot of older events in the show, but from a different sort of background, not really a different POV, and we see the future too, and how all this might pan out one way or another. And I'll be honest, I kinda enjoyed this episode, so let's get to it. As always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review. Thanks for taking the time to choose to watch this channel. If you haven't done it already, leave a like and subscribe to the channel as well. So the episode opens with Mol and Lok in a trade with an alien, and I was kinda hoping that this guy would be a Jem'Hadar, but, I guess not. But it's not a trade, it's a trap. They crossed the guy before he could cross them. But for what? They need to get ahead of Discovery, but so far they're behind, and we don't really know what this trade specifically was for. But it turns out they want the progenitor's technology, but for what? They didn't even know what it was a few days ago, and now they want it for some reason to do something. I mean, later on in the episode, it's kind of suggested that they sold it in the future, but I guess we're going to have to watch the rest of the show to find out. But back on Discovery, the literal bug, yep, the bug's a bug planted on Adira last week is loose on the ship. And the ship's at the coordinates they got from the last clue as well. Because remember, they had to do a thing to learn a thing, to get a thing, to get where they are, to get the next thing, which is where we are now. I'm glad you're up to speed. But they're at a dead end, and one thing I noticed straight away is, where's Detmer and Olo? I mean, they are in this episode, but the sort of background bridge crew in this season seems to have totally changed and skips between different people. And is it just me, or is that a little odd? Let me know what you think in the comments below. But as I predicted, Michael and Raynor are button heads because, of course, they have to. Raynor hates how chummy the crew are, and I've got to say, you're not alone there, mate. But can Michael trust this former captain turned current number one? But as they're going at it with their different styles of command, the bug sabotages the ship. Michael and Raynor arrive on the bridge and find the crew unconscious, wearing the original 23rd century disco uniforms that we got in the first two seasons, and it turns out they've been forced back in time to the moment that, the ship went back in time between season 2 and 3. Oh, and there's Detmer, by the way, in case you're wondering where she was. There's Detmer. Oh, they're stuck back in time, and the problem is they can't be seen as it might change the timeline, etc., all that stuff. But before they can get a handle on what's going on, they jump back through time again, further back than we've ever seen in Discovery, to where the ship is being built. And it's literally on Earth, not in orbit, and I can see no Star Trek fans having zero issue with that whatsoever, because, we're not really a picky bunch. Raynor works out what's going on, and it turns out it's the Krenim, or at least Krenim tech. Remember them for the Year of Hell? It's an Easter egg, so at this stage, why the hell? So the bug that was a bug is actually a bug that sort of manipulates time and traps a crew and its ship in, well, different time frames, as it seems. Because the bug that's a literal bug that can cause a situation with time is naturally called a time bug. Naturally. I mean, come on guys, the writing here... I'm trying to be nice this episode, but the writing here is a little bit hard to take. Michael works out that they need Stamets as he's travelling with them. As remember that first season episode with Harry Mudd, we find out that Stamets exists outside of time, because they haven't mentioned that in a few seasons, and it is the last one, and why not throw another Easter egg in there? So Raynor and Michael decide to go to engineering, and after 4 seasons, they get in a turbo lift. They ask to go to engineering, and of course we're not gonna see it. They're just gonna say it. We're not gonna see it or even mention a chief engineer. Don't even worry about it. So they end up in a corridor, and I guess this is them learning to work together type of deal situation episode that we're getting, because there is quite a lot of that here, and I'll get to that later on. Anyway, they jump again to find the ship empty, and this is the far-flung future. And like most people watching this, and most Discovery fans, I thought, oh my god, they're addressing Calypso, they're going to tie it all in together, they're bringing it back, we've got the original members of the band, it's all going to be great, because it certainly felt like that, but it's not. It's 30 years in the future, and we find out the progenitor's tech fell into the wrong hands and everyone died, including Federation HQ, which was wiped out by the Breen, who Mol and Lok sold the progenitor's tech to. What annoys me here in this entire scene is Zora, the sphere data computer or whatever, initially tells them that she can't remember what happened, and then less than 3 minutes later completely fills in the blanks by telling them what happened. I mean, is it just me? Let me know what you think in the comments below. They jump back again to season 2 and hook up with Stamets, who thought he was doing this alone and managed to locate the bug in engineering, or at least the spore drive room, because that is engineering in this show. They need to work out the pattern of the jumps to get home and need enough time in a jump to build the tech they need in order to make this plan work. So it's another side quest, but with time travel, sort of. Michael needs something from her quarters to build the device, and she has to go there as she's the only one who can open the door. Until, of course, she's in her quarters and Book walks in by opening the door. Anyway, the plan doesn't work as the bug has a defense, so they need a new plan to beat the time bug, time, bug, whatever. But this is where this episode surprisingly ties itself together. They do use science, with Stamets explaining the plan using the warp bubble and how they're going to use this to overcome the sort of defences of the bug. And for Star Trek Discovery, although I've hammered some of the writing on this, it does feel very tight and like a usual Star Trek episode, which is kind of unusual for this show. There was more Trek talk that made sense in this episode than there has been, quite frankly, in the last 5 seasons of Discovery, and it just makes me a little bit sad that it took this long to get there. Michael needs to go to the bridge and they jump again back to season 1, which of course sets up something that, again, I think the writing here could actually be quite good, because we get season 5 Michael running into season 1 Michael, and man, did they highlight how she's changed. And this is the point where I think, yeah, this show is kind of like, it knows what it's doing here with this scene. It's saying that this is the way the character used to be, this is the way the character is now. And Sonequa Martin Green, look, proves how good an actress she is, well, in these 1 roles, because it's not 2 roles, I suppose, because we get the season 1 Michael, just the physicality of her is different. She's more kind of hunched and tensed, and yeah, the hair looks, whatever the hair looks like, that's your own personal opinion. And then we get season 5 Mike, who's a little bit more quieter and diplomatic and relaxed and friendly, and I actually like that they took the time to highlight in this show, and it shows a level of self-awareness that I didn't think the Star Trek Discovery writers were capable of. But I really want to know what you guys think of this scene with the season 1 Michael and the season 5 Michael, and how this character has changed. Were they right to do this scene? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comments below. 5 Michael, I'm just going to call her that now because there's going to be 2 of them for the rest of the episode. She manages to make it to the bridge and explains who she is again, because why not? And at this point, you've got to remember that Arium, remember her? It's okay if you don't, she died in season 2, is in command of the ship, so we're not going to get Lorca or a Jason Isaacs come back here, sadly. So Michael's got to convince all the bridge crew, and we get the classic ones here of Detmer, Owo, Bryce, who, again, none of these people have had backstories in 5 years, and they could take the opportunity to do it here, and they don't do it, which does piss me off. But anyway, Michael's got to convince them that she's on their side, and it's in their best interest to go along with the plan to collapse the warp bubble. Until season 1 Michael shows back up to ruin everything with Stamets and engineering, and yeah, again, they're doing the whole duality of the character here, and I kinda liked it, but is this deliberate, or is it sort of accidentally just good? Like, you know, in the way that if you gave monkeys typewriters, they'd eventually come up with Shakespeare, that kind of thing? I don't really know. But anyway, the plan works and they return back to the present with having nothing changed, other than Michael and Raynor's dynamic, which actually kind of worked in this episode and kind of was the best part. But the crew are on to the next clue because of course they are, to do the thing, to catch the thing, to get to the place, to find the thing. And that's about it for this episode. And I'll be honest, although I do have a go at this show, and quite a significant go at its writing, without being too nasty, I hope, this week I did have genuine fun with this show, and it did feel like a good classic Star Trek episode. It wasn't too heavy on the whole Discovery, emotionally based trauma writing stuff, but yeah, as always, there's going to be bad points with the writing, and I mean, they called the time bug a time bug for. But as good as this episode was, it does make me sad that it took us 5 seasons to get here. This felt like it should have been slap bang in the middle of season 2 or 3 to build the crew story out, and it's a shame that it came so late in the game, because we've only got a few episodes left and they're still jumping about the place with who they want to focus on with regards to the secondary characters like Detmer or the new people like Gallo or anyone at all. They're just giving us fun little facts about these characters and then hoping that it satisfies us when they've had 5 years to build them up and they've never done it. And while this episode did take it away from the whole side questing thing, at least for the main side quest for the season, it doesn't feel like they're wasting time like they did last season with the whole Book Tarka escapade that lasted episodes and episodes and just wasn't fun or tense at all. This was a really fun episode of Star Trek, taking a really classic premise and using it to sort of do the flashback episodes that they sometimes do in sci-fi shows that you don't really get anymore. So I do appreciate that from a budgetary point of view. They are sort of making a bottleneck episode so they can save money for the season later on. I just wonder what they're saving the money for. But even though we ended up seeing a lot of the crew, as I said, we didn't get anything new, and I hope Lorca was going to show up. But hey, you never know, he still might. It did suffer some of the non-logic of Discovery we've come to expect, or at least, you know, the whole stuff with they can't interact with anyone from the past until they can sort of thing, or at least until the story needs them to. And I really thought they were going to follow up or tie into the short Trek episode Calypso, and they kind of blew that opportunity as well. I guess they're not going to touch that, and I might do a video on Calypso because it's absolutely fascinating that they set this up and they're not going to pay it off. If you'd like to see a video on Calypso, let me know in the comments below, and let me know what you think of this week's episode as well. Was it just me, or was this a slightly better take on Discovery, or at least slightly elevated at points when it came to the writing? I really did think some of it worked. I really did think some of the logic in the Trek Tech Talk worked, and try saying Trek Tech Talk 3 times. Let me know how you got on with that in the comments below, as well as let me know your opinion. But yeah, for me, this felt like classic Star Trek. I just don't think the show's going to be able to keep it running for the few remaining episodes that are left, and it took far too long to get to this point. But as always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review. Thanks for watching this, and if you want to reach out to me on Twitter, don't call it X, here's the link to do that. You can follow me at The Geeks Reviews. I'm going to be doing a few more videos on Discovery, so make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it, and as always, thanks for watching.